So that's native-land.ca.
Okay, thanks, Sally.
Great. Through the chair, Councillor McKenzie, we are now live.
Oh, and
Okay,
further to
thanks.
Sally's comments, we lowered the flags to half mast at the courthouse this morning.
We lowered ours at West Perth as well this morning, I believe. Okay, good morning and thank you all for in attendance today. I'd like to call to order the May 31st, 2021 meeting of the County of Perth Land Division Committee. I would like to make note that what will be shown on the screen for those viewing at home is our remote meeting platform, whereby whoever is speaking will be shown predominantly, with smaller images of members and staff attending along the edge of the screen. The agenda for this meeting hearing has been posted online at perthcounty.ca. If you want to follow along, please feel free to access it now. I will remind all committee members, staff, and others participating in the meeting to please mute your microphones when not in use to reduce feedback. As this meeting is being held remotely, there are some procedural changes regarding how the committee will vote. The Secretary-Treasurer will call each of the members' names and each member will respond if they are in favor or opposed to a motion, and the chair will announce the result of the vote. Before we proceed, I will confirm the attendance of the committee members by a roll call. David, I'll let you do that.
Okay, thank you, Chair McKenzie. Committee members, I'll be reading your names out loud. When you hear your name, please unmute yourself and respond present. Councillor Eggerts.
Present.
Councillor Duncan.
Present.
Councillor Wilhelm.
Present.
Warden Aitchison.
Present.
And Councillor McKenzie.
Present.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Chair, attendance is complete and we do have quorum.
Okay, thank you, David. All right, first item is confirmation of the agenda for today's meeting. So I need a motion here, a resolution that the May 31st, 2021 agenda be approved. We have a mover and seconder for that. Warden Aitchison and Councillor Eggerts. David, I'll let you conduct the vote.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Councillor Eggerts, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Duncan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Wilhelm, how do you vote?
Yes.
Warden Aitchison, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Councillor McKenzie, how do you vote?
Yes. So the agenda for today's meeting has been carried. The next item up is the adoption of the April 26, 2021 Land Division Committee minutes. And so there is a motion there that we approve the minutes from that date, April the 26th. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Wilhelm and Councillor Duncan. David, I'll let you conduct the vote again.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor Eggerts, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Duncan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Wilhelm, how do you vote?
Yes.
Warden Aitchison, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Councillor McKenzie, how do you vote?
Yes. So the minutes of our last meeting have been voted on and carried. The next item on our agenda is appointment of officers for Land Division Secretary Treasurer and Deputy Land Division Secretary Treasurer. Sally, you or Adam doing or responsible for this report? I know we had it here, but I don't know whether anybody wants to go in a bit of detail about it or not.
Yeah, I can say a few words to just lead up to discussion, which is that with a change of staff and organization of our service model, that we have, Rachel has joined our team and her position is to act as Land Division Secretary. And so she would take on the duties for this committee of organizing the meetings, preparing agendas. But in addition to that, the Land Division Secretary takes on the responsibility of ensuring that each condition has been met to the satisfaction of whichever municipality or agency. And they coordinate all of the agreements and certificates of official for that, for a consent to become finalized. So it's an important role, and Rachel has been training well, and David has been offering his expertise and training to Rachel. And so given the importance of the role, we'd also like to have a deputy so that there's always somebody here that can act for those tasks that happen ongoing throughout the entire month, not just at Land Division Committee meeting time. So we are recommending then that Rachel be appointed as Land Division Secretary and David be our deputy, and he will then focus mainly on his planner role and be a support to Rachel for some continued training, but also as backup so that we always have a Land Division Secretary with us. So, you know, to cover illness or vacation or what have you. So increasing our bench strength with the two.
Okay, thank you, Sally. All right, so the motion that we have here right now is that Perth County Council receives the appointment of Land Division Secretary Treasurer and Deputy Land Division Secretary Treasurer report for information, and that Rachel Suffren be appointed as the Land Division Secretary Treasurer, and that David Gundrum be appointed as the Deputy Land Division Secretary Treasurer. Do we have a mover and seconder for that? Warden Aitchison, and seconded by Councillor Wilhelm. Any discussion on that? Okay, seeing none. David, I'll let you do your magic.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Eggetts, how do you vote on the motion?
Yes.
Councillor Duncan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Wilhelm, how do you vote?
Yes.
Warden Aitchison, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Councillor Mackenzie, how do you vote?
Yes. So the results of that is that it was carried unanimously. So just a quick question then, now that we've done that. So for the rest of the meeting, who do I ask to call the vote?
You can ask Rachel now.
I can ask Rachel. Okay, so change of leadership here. Okay.
Thank you, David.
Yeah. We're into the hearing of the applications for consent, and the first one, and I guess I have to check with Rachel, is everybody that's involved in this first application, are they in and here? And
Great,
were
thank
they
you through the
supposed to be
chair. So we do have Planner Yilmaz on the line, as well as two individuals wishing to speak to this application when you do open up that for comments. And at that point, I will transfer those individuals over to panelists in order to speak and appear on the live stream.
Okay, thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first is an application for consent to sever, and it's number B0521 by 2485500 Ontario Limited on behalf of David and Margot Carson, Lot 19, Concession 1 of the Wallace Ward. And Shane, you're going to take this one away, I believe. The floor is
Yes,
yours.
thank you. Thank you. And good morning, members of Land Division Committee. I hope everyone is doing well today. Application B0521 submitted to the County of Perth is an application for a consent to sever a dwelling deemed surplus to a farming operation. The applicant, David and Margot Carson, are the property owners of two farm properties here within the county. Both properties contain existing farm dwellings, which have been deemed surplus to the needs of their consolidated farm operation. This application for consent applies to the property located at 5618 Perth Line 86, which is at the northeast corner of Perth Line 86 and Road 157 in North Perth. The consent sketch prepared by MTE and submitted with the application overlooked the existing septic bed and did not include this portion of the septic system with the proposed severed lot. Staff actually met with the applicant to discuss potential options to include the existing septic system. Using the septic permit on file, we were able to determine the general location of the septic bed. And as a consequence, the original lot configuration that was proposed by the applicant required a revision to accommodate the full septic system. The submitted sketch has not yet been revised. However, based on the discussion with the applicant, a condition is included with this application that would ultimately result in the new lot configuration that is presented today. An updated site location photo was prepared and circulated with the staff report. This photo represents the approximate lot configuration based on the recommended condition that we included in order to capture the septic system. Maybe I can just share my screen very quickly if that's possible, and I can just kind of give you an indication of the lot here. So this is, if we can see that. Yeah, okay. So this is the new lot configuration, which would essentially come right to Road 157 here. Previously, the lot configuration looked like this, if that's on your screen now. So you can see the differences.
I don't see the previous one, but I just see the one that the first one you put up there. Sorry.
Okay, no, thank you. So this is the original one that was with the application.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So essentially, it went up a little bit more north. The new one cuts down this way and comes over here. The septic bed's over here, as you can almost see it in the image.
Very good, Sean.
Thank you. So the revision to the lot configuration consequently increases the total lot area of the severed lot from the original proposal. However, this size is appropriate to accommodate the dwelling and associated services and avoids the removal of farmland not required for the residential use. As such, the frontage of the proposed severed lot would extend to Road 157 with 83.5 meters of public road frontage along Perth Line 86 and a lot depth of 55 meters, thereby giving a total lot area of 0.46 hectares or 1.13 acres. As noted, to capture this updated lot configuration, a condition is included with the recommendation and is identified as condition number 5. If the consent application is approved, the proposed retained farmland would have a lot frontage of approximately 221 meters or 726 feet along Perth Line 86 and a total lot area of approximately 19.7 hectares or 48.7 acres. Decisions on consent to sever applications must be consistent with the provincial policy statement, which states that the new lot will be limited to a minimum size needed to accommodate the use and appropriate water and sewage services, and that the planning authority ensures that new residential dwellings are prohibited on any remnant parcel of farmland created by the severance. The provincial policy statement defines a resident surplus to a farming operation as an existing habitable farm residence that is rendered surplus as a result of a farm consolidation, which is the acquisition of additional farm parcels to be operated as one farm operation. Consent to sever applications must also conform to County of Perth official plan. Specifically, section 5631 of the County OP provides criteria and requirements that the county deems necessary to sever dwellings made surplus as a result of a farm consolidation. The list includes, but is not limited to, that the minimum distance separation provisions of MDS 1 be satisfied, that the surplus farm dwelling must be a minimum of 10 years old, and that the area of land to be severed for the surplus farm dwelling lot shall be limited to the minimum size required. The staff report has explored and addressed these policies as it relates to the application and feels that the proposal is consistent with both provincial policy statement and the County of Perth official plan. Of particular interest, however, is criteria A of section 5631 of the County of Perth official plan, which states that the land on which the surplus farm dwelling is situated must be operated or will be operated as part of a consolidated farm operation. Now, we did receive one piece of correspondence expressing concern that the proposed severance, application Sorry, we did receive one piece of correspondence expressing concerns with the proposed severance application. This has been included in the staff report as an attachment. One of the noted concerns was regarding whether the two operations constituted a consolidated farm operation, as the property ownership are not in the exact same names. As a result of this letter, staff felt it was diligent to bring this application forward to Land Division Committee and to host this public hearing to discuss this concern. The home property involved in the severance is identified as being owned by both Margot and David Carson, with the surplus farm property, with the property with the surplus farm dwelling house identified as being owned by a numbered company. Margot Carson is a 100% shareholder of this numbered company, thereby making Margot Carson a majority owner in both properties. Criteria A of section 5631 provides further direction as to what may be an eligible farm operation for a severance. It states, for the purpose of this section of the official plan, a corporation may be an eligible farming operation to sever a surplus farm dwelling, provided the same corporation owns at least two farms, each containing a residence, one of which is surplus to the farm operation and may be severed in accordance with this section. It also states that an unincorporated group of one or more persons may be an eligible farming operation to sever a surplus farm dwelling, provided a majority of the owners in the group, together or individually, own another farm containing a residence, one of which may be severed in accordance with this section of the official plan. In Ontario, there are many different legal structures of farm ownership, which are typically driven by either tax policy, farm succession, or maybe investment strategies. Various options for ownership structures include partnerships, corporations, joint ventures, and cooperatives, with a similar variety of operational structures throughout Ontario, where some farms are managed day-to-day by owners-operators, multi-generational families, employees, and sometimes a mix of this. The intention of the PPS in permitting surplus farm dwelling consents is that the dwelling is made surplus as a result of farm operation consolidation through acquisition of additional farm parcels. Margot Carson and David Carson own both farm parcels, as they are the farm family, and their farm operation, which has been verified by their farm business registration number, is conducted on both farm properties. And each property has a dwelling, with one of them being considered surplus to their farming operation. Staff feel that the application conforms to the policies of the official plan, as both properties have common ownership, and this common ownership is a majority shareholder on both properties. There are no other entities involved in ownership of the properties. There are no other entities involved in the ownership of these properties. Additionally, staff feel that the proposal meets the intent of the provincial policy statement and the other policies in the County of Perth official plan, as noted in the staff report. The dwelling is over 10 years old and is habitable. There are no MDS issues or conflicts. Both properties are within Perth County, and the size of the lot maintain the minimum necessary for the residential use. Staff have no objection to the proposed consent to sever, provided the applicant meets the 9 identified conditions provided with the recommendation. This includes that the lot configuration is revised to accommodate the full septic system, and that a zoning bylaw amendment is required, imposing restrictions on future uses of both the severed and retained lot through a site-specific amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw. This application was presented to North Perth Council on May 3rd, 2021, with North Perth Council electing to support the application. As such, it is staff's recommendation that the County of Perth Land Division Committee approve the application for a consent to sever, subject to the 9 noted conditions included. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on the report at this time? Okay, moving on then. I would invite individuals who are in support of this application to speak. Okay, seeing Nobody coming forth. Rachel?
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor McKenzie. We do have Mr. David Carson on the line. He is the applicant. I'm not sure if you'd like to speak at this point, Mr. Carson. I just see we do have him on the line.
He is
Everything
muted.
seems-
There we go.
Okay. I don't think unless you have questions for us, I've met with all the planning committee and everything, and it was approved by council and everything, the council, everybody. If you have no questions for me, I have none for you.
Any questions from the Land Division Committee? Okay, thank you. Very good. All right, if I would now invite individuals that are in opposition to this application to speak.
Through the chair, we do have Mr. Brad Carson on the line. I believe he just unmuted.
Okay, here we go. Okay, Brad?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. My question is ownership and the zoning of the farm dwelling that they live at is commercial, I think. And there's quite a bit of that property is attached to Carson Farms, which I'm a 20% shareholder of. So that was my big question, was ownership.
Sean, do you want to, you kind of explained it in the report. Do you want to address this again?
Sure, thank you. So yes, we did have a concern from Mr. Carson. And it was, I guess, the main concern, as he had noted, was the ownerships didn't seem to be identical. The Carsons do own several properties in North Perth. For this application particularly, they have identified their home property, which is owned by Brad and excuse me, by David and Margot Carson. And then the other property, which is owned in the numbered company that is submitted with this application, we received verification from Margot Carson through a declaration that she owns 100% shares of that numbered company. The 20% ownership that Brad Carson is speaking to right now, I'm not sure if he's talking about this numbered company or another property that is withheld between the Carsons.
Okay, as far as you're concerned that this is the ownership is the same and it's definitely surplus is what you're saying.
Yes, correct. In my professional opinion, it does meet all the criteria to qualify as a surplus farm dwelling severance.
Okay, thanks, John. Questions from Land Division? Any questions or clarification required here? Rhonda?
Mr. Carson, I have a second question about what the zoning would be on the house that's left. The house that we severed off. Did he not have that question as well?
Yes.
If I understood the question correctly, so this property is in an agricultural zone. If the consent application is approved, then a condition would require both the severed lot and the retained lot to be rezoned. They still will remain in the agricultural zone, but there will be a site-specific provision that will limit the uses on both the retained and the severed lots, which is a standard condition here with surplus farm severances. I'm not sure if that's the exact question Brad had. I'm sorry, I might have been a little bit confused by it.
Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead, Brad.
It is, by the tax bill, it is zoned commercially. And there's quite a few buildings on that property that are tied to the auction business that, and the severance is right along the front of the office on that property too. So it is, a lot of it is tied to Carson Farms.
I'm not sure we're actually talking about the same property. The severance is there's one dwelling on the property. There's no offices. There is another property with the Carson auction. That's not subject of this severance.
Yes, well, it's included in the 50 acres.
It might be sorry, just to add, it might be a property under ownership of them, but that's not the property that's going to have this severance specifically. It's still operating as an agricultural property.
The existing. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. I'm
Because
I'm just looking for,
there's 3 other buildings on that house and 50 acres that are tied to the auction business that are rented out and used commercially.
If I could just share my screen for a second.
sure.
1 second. So this is the property here that's subject to the severance. This dwelling is existing and it's still there. This building over here has actually been removed. And this shed is still there, but it's just a shed. I'm not sure any significant office or anything is within this.
I'm talking about the other property.
And just to add again, the other property isn't the subject of this severance. It's this property in front of us today.
But is it not, it's supposed to be attached to an existing farming operation?
Oh yeah, so that they do have ownership in the other property, but the severance isn't a part of that property. It's the severance is happening on this property, which is a different pin altogether from the other one.
That's not my concern. It's the dwelling it's attached to and the property it's attached to. That numbered company was not to have anything to do with the rest of it. And there is a succession plan that was on the table that was not to include the house and 50 acres that where they live.
Matt, go ahead.
I guess what I'm picking up from what Brad's saying here is he's questioning whether or not the farmhouse where David and Margot live is actually part of the farm there, which would then reflect on whether or not the other farm would be surplus.
Exactly.
Is that correct, Brad?
Yes.
Sally, can you help us out a little bit here maybe too?
When we receive an application for severance, we request the PIN for each property, both the farm with the surplus dwelling on it, plus the farm property that it is surplus to. And the PIN is a property identification number. It's a document used in Ontario Land Registry, and it lists the owner for us. So we request both of those, like an updated printout of both properties when we get them, which is how Sean learned that one was in 2 names and one was in a company's name. And then when we receive something like that, then our further investigation is, okay, well, who's behind this numbered company, so that we can identify if it's actually, in fact, works back to the same people. And then we evaluate majority. So Sean could verify he has 2 pins. One of them has David and Margot's name on it, and the other one has a numbered company on it. That's the surplus house farm. And that one is 100% Margot. So when you go back to our policy, it says that within the same household, they can be considered as one individual. So we have two properties here essentially in Margot's name as far as the paperwork goes that we have, which is Ontario Land Registry documentation and the share register for the numbered company.
When did Margot's name get added to the original property?
We could find that in the registry, in the PIN, in the history of the PIN.
When?
Well, Sean can look that up, and you also can look that up in registry, but at the time of severance, that's the name on the deed.
Because the original tax bill is William David Carson on that property.
It's obviously been changed at some point in time then.
It would be changed since that other property was bought, and that property was not supposed to have anything to do with Carson Farms, but it is. Am I right in saying the 50 acres in the original house is zoned commercial?
Sean, what's the zone of the property that it's surplus to?
I'd have to go back and double check. I'm sorry, I don't recall the zoning on it.
It's still in agriculture. They're both designated
It's
agriculture.
definitely designated agriculture. It's just, I'm not sure if it's an ACM zone or if it's or anything different, but it's my understanding it's an ag zone.
And the ACM zone would only apply to a portion of that parcel where the commercial operations actually happen. So both of these properties are designated agriculture in the official plan. And the house that it's surplus to is also zoned agriculture. Sorry, the surplus house on a property also zoned agricultural. And we can verify the date of the PIN, the printout. But beyond that, we would defer to questions from the committee, I guess. Let me find that date for you.
Is there any questions from the rest of the committee members though while we're here? Warden Aitchison?
Not really a question. From what I understand from what Sean has reported to us and Sally, like this basically meets all the criteria. They're both properly registered in one name. They meet the criteria. They're zoned ag. Whenever the names or whatever changed on the property is really irrelevant to us. It's just whether they meet the criteria here today, and it does.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Any other questions from committee members? Okay, any other staff comments at this time? Okay, I don't see anybody coming forward. So we do have a resolution here, and it's that Perth County Council receives the title of the report for information, and that Perth County Council, the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate approve the application for consent to sever number B0521, Lot 19, Concession 1, Wallace Ward, Municipality of North Perth, 5618 Perth Line 86, subject to the following conditions. And there's 9 conditions there. Do you want me to read the 9 conditions, or we've had them for the weekend? Are you okay with that? You're okay with the conditions not being read? Okay, that is the resolution. I'm looking for, at this stage of the game, a mover and seconder for that particular resolution. Councillor Wilhelm, and do we have a seconder? Warden Aitchison. And Rachel, I'm going to let you do your magic this time.
Wonderful through the chair. Thank you. Councillor Duncan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Eggetts, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Wilhelm, how do you vote?
Yes.
Warden Aitchison, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Chair Councillor Mackenzie, how do you vote?
Yes. So the results of that resolution is that it is carried. So thank you very much. The next consent for severance is a surplus farm dwelling number B0221 by Vanessa Farms, Lot 7, Concession 8 of the Downey Ward of the Township of Perth South. And I believe Adam Kozłowski will present the application staff recommendation, and he'll be available for questions from the committee following his presentation. So Adam, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. Good morning, members of committee. I'm going to share a screen and walk the committee through this application and show some sketches. Can everybody see the air photo with the?
Yep, we can see it, Adam.
Okay,
Yep.
and my cursor moving on the screen? Everyone can see that? Okay,
Yep.
perfect. So the subject property is owned by Van Ness Farms Limited, and this property is located at 4258 line 20, which is just outside of St. Paul's Station on the west side of St. Paul's Station. Property is within the agricultural designation of the county official plan and is zoned agricultural in the Perth South zoning bylaw. The applicant, just for committee's reference, so the property is in red here, and then the surplus farm dwelling lot as originally proposed was in yellow here. And just for context, the applicant had originally applied for a larger parcel here, 0.981 hectares, and the retained lot would be 19.5 hectares. The severed lot would have 54 meters of frontage, which is 177 feet on line 20. And what they had originally proposed was to have the north rear lot line up here, and then they would take in the barn, which would be removed, as well as these two grain bins, which would be removed. Through conversation with staff, we originally had concerns with the lot size. We felt that since these structures are going to be removed, there's probably no justification to have this open area contained within this surplus farm dwelling lot. So we worked with the applicant and the applicant's agent, and what we ended up recommending approval of was a reduced lot size. So what the applicant did is this rectangle here in red was omitted, and it would be kept with the retained farm lot. And then the new north lot line would be this red line right here. And the reason for the red lot line being located here is that it would provide 50 feet of clearance from the rear doors of this drive shed. So this way, once these grain bins are removed, there'd be enough room to access in and out of the back of this shed. So the lot area was reduced from the 0.93 hectares down to 0.82 hectares, which is just a little over 2 acres. And the retained farm lot was increased from 19.5 to 19.66 hectares, which is 48.5 acres. This revised proposal was taken to Perth South Council on April 20th, and Perth South Council endorsed the recommendation of staff with the conditions that were included. When the notice was circulated originally, there was some conversation with the neighbor next door. The conversations were mainly through email, and the neighbor next door had some technical questions about MDS and the severance itself. And staff had answered those questions. The email correspondence is attached in your report packages. After the Perth South Council endorsement, we did receive a formal objection from the next door neighbor. That was on May 6th. And the objection is largely based on the lot size of the proposed surplus farm dwelling lot. And with that objection, we circulated and posted a notice for a public meeting so that the neighbor could be heard today and speak to this application. And so staff have reviewed the application against all the applicable policies of the Perth County Official Plan, the provincial policy statement. And our recommendation is to approve the application subject to the conditions that are outlined in the original report and the report before committee today. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, is there any questions for Adam at this time from the committee? Okay, don't see any. I would invite individuals at this time that are in support of this application to speak. And I don't see any, Rachel. So-
Through the chair at this point, we do not have anybody on the line speaking in support of the application.
Right, okay, thank you. All right, so seeing nobody speaking in support, I would now invite individuals that are in opposition to this application to speak. And we have on the line, I believe, Sharon, or it could be Rob Dunsmore, I guess, too, depending on how the names are on the screen here. So go ahead.
Good morning, Land Division Committee. My name is Sharon Dunsmore. My husband, Bob Dunsmore, is beside me here. We're opposing the size of the severance to this property. If you've read through the emails, we did have other concerns as well. The last email that's in your package speaks to our concerns about the size of the property. Our contention is that the property west of the laneway on the diagram that Adam showed does not need to be included with the severance. That includes a shed and some grassland in front of the shed. The well and the septic system are all located in front of and behind the house. Our stand is that the purpose of the surplus dwelling proposal is just for surplus dwellings, that the shed should not be included in the severance.
If you look at the building permit for that shed, it was built for agricultural purpose. And the house actually already has a garage on it. So why would a severance property need a shop that is, or shed that is 40 by 90 to store his lawnmower in to cut his lawn? I do believe if you're going to leave that shed there, I think you're leaving the door open for other possibilities that, yes, I know it cannot be used for anything else other than residential, but I think you're leaving the door wide open for something else. If Mr. Vanass wants to rent that parcel back to whoever purchased that property, there's nothing I can do. I just think as soon as you get a property at that size, location, you're talking big dollars. And when you get big dollars, people that buy that feel entitlement. And when you get entitlement, and just for your information, I already have a severance property on the other side. Thank God that person is quite well to work with. But I just think you're leaving that door open. When you leave that shed there for a bigger possibility, that property already has a house or has a well and a septic system on that side. And that's all that's needed. These farm surplus dwellings were for farm surplus dwellings, not farm surplus dwellings and sheds.
Okay, thanks, Rob and Sharon. Adam, do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to committee. One of the conditions of consent is a requirement that the surplus farm lot will be rezoned. And part of that rezoning will include that any accessory structures on the property are to be used as accessory to a residence, not to a farm operation. So if this is approved today, the land will be rezoned at a future date. And if for any reason that drive shed becomes some type of an agricultural building or an agricultural use operating out of it, they will be in contravention of zoning, and we can proceed with enforcement.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Anything further to add, Sally? I'm not trying to throw you under the bus. I'm just giving staff an opportunity to comment here if they wish. Any questions from the committee? Matt?
Just clarification, the new size is just a shade over 2 acres, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. 2.03 acres.
Any other question? Oh, Rhonda, go ahead.
So if you were to remove that shed and make it just by the well, then how many acres do you know approximately would we be taking away?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll share screen again. So if we were to, the suggestion is if the lot line here was to be moved down around this area, somewhere down here.
No,
Okay.
Under the shed, below the shed, between the shed and the well, down there,
Oh, okay, so down here.
right about there, yes.
Yeah, okay, so I can only ballpark it, but it looks like it would be, this chunk up here is just under half an acre. So if we were to redraw the line down here, let's call it another half acre. So the total would be probably just a little bit over an acre total, and then the resulting retained or the resulting surplus farm lot would be brought down to approximately an acre.
Okay, thank you.
Good question, Rhonda. Any other questions or comments? Warden Aitchison.
Would that leave enough distance separation on the lot line for that well to do that? Because that well's out behind the house.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head what the setback for a well is to a property line.
15, I think.
15 meters, so 50 feet.
You haven't got that in that. Looking at that map to me.
Sharon, you have a question, or Rob maybe? I just see a hand up. I'm not sure if there's a question or not. So, okay, we'll carry on. Is
yes,
there
I
any
do have
further?
a question.
Oh, okay, sorry.
All right, just computer. Yeah, what we are suggesting is that you take the laneway and go straight back to the line that you want to have now. And that allows almost an acre 0.25, I think. Instead of making it short of the shed, you go straight back. You understand what I'm talking about?
I'm just trying to bring it up here on my other.
Can you bring it up again, Adam? Like if you look where the laneway is and you go straight back to the red line and then over. And then you leave that for the severance.
So through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Dunsmore and to the committee. So the suggestion here is that this become like a rectangular lot
Yes,
like this.
yes.
So what would, okay, so then the suggestion then is that the drive shed would then be kept on, we'll call it the retained farm property. So what would result is you would base, the retained farm lot would then have a thin kind of strip of land that comes down and fronts on Perth line 20. Is that correct?
Yep. And I know it's not perfect, but it eliminates the size. He's still got his well, he's still got a septic system for whoever buys that. So. And it closes the door on anybody to try and buy that for any other business or anything. And yes, you may change it to residential, but believe me, there's lawyers that know loopholes how to do this stuff.
Any comments, Adam? Well, Matt has a question. I'll take Matt's question and then I'll ask Adam for comments, I guess. Go ahead, Matt.
So if we were to put that strip down the side, like you'd be right on the property line up to the edge of the laneway, more or less. How big of a strip would that be? 50 feet wide?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So again, just ballparking it, the frontage right now is 54 meters. And if we were to basically split that down the middle, so it'd be half of 54. So 26 meters, which is,
Less the driveway.
yeah, less the driveway. So yeah, it'd probably be around, I'm going to ballpark around 20 meters. So there'd be a strip of land about 66 feet wide.
Okay.
I guess in my opinion, that's more or less worthless to the landowner that's going to farm that property. So.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Duncan. Yeah, that it would create almost like an orphan piece there. Like it would be connected to the farm lot, but it really, you wouldn't be able to access it. So it would, from a severance perspective and from a lot fabric perspective, it would create a difficulty, in my opinion.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Adam. Any other questions or comments from anybody on the committee? Okay, do you have a resolution here that the Council of Perth County Land Division Committee received the report entitled Application for Consent to Sever Surplus Farm Dwelling Number B0221 by Vanessa Farms Limited, affecting land subscribed as Lot 8, Concession 8, Downey Ward, Township of Perth South, 4258, line 20, dated Monday, the 31st of May, prepared by County Planning Department for information, and that the County of Perth Land Division Committee approved the application for consent to sever surplus farm dwelling B0221 made by Vanessa Farms Limited, subject to the following conditions. And there's 10 conditions there, and with your permission, I won't read all 10 conditions. They were there for your information all weekend long. So is that okay? I see some nods. Okay, so that's the motion. Do we have a mover and seconder, or how do you want to deal with it? So moved by Councillor Wilhelm. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Duncan. Okay, any further discussion on this particular application? Okay, don't see anybody's hand up. Rachel, I'll let you do the vote.
Thank you. Through you, Chair McKenzie. Warden Aitchison, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Duncan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Wilhelm, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Eggetts, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Chair McKenzie, how do you vote?
Yes. So the results of
That's
that is carried. Thank you. Okay. At this time, I'm just going to back up to the previous application, and Sally had some additional information that she was going to share with us, I think, at this time.
Thank you, Councillor McKenzie, and through you to the committee. I wanted to clarify. So I pulled the pins on those two properties, and I wanted to validate Mr. Brad Carson's comment. It is William David Carson on one pin and the numbered company on the other pin, meaning that David owns one and Margot owns one wholly. And so there is in our official plan a statement that says essentially shared households, kind of getting at husband and wife, can be viewed as one individual. So it doesn't change our recommendation. There is a shared ownership or common ownership of the two parcels. But I didn't want it to go past without correcting my, because I said David and Margot were listed on both. That was my recollection from conversations, but I did want to verify and validate that correction for him because he was correct about who was named on the plan.
Okay, so thanks, Sally. So yeah, it does clarify, but it doesn't change the decision that we made at all.
It doesn't change our recommendation.
Okay, all right, very good. Okay, moving on, and I realized that there were some members that had another meeting here shortly, so we'll try and proceed here. The next item is an application, I'll find it here, for consent to sever of two new residential lots, B 5420 and B 5520 by Robina Kipfer and Magdalena Kipfer. And I believe the Baker Planning Group is involved in this one. However, Adam is our planner that's dealing with it. So I'm going to let Adam present the application and staff recommendations, and then he will be available for questions afterwards. So Adam, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, committee, I will share screen and walk committee briefly through the application. Okay, and I trust everybody can see the air photo.
Yep.
Okay, so just to zoom out a little bit here, just for context, we are in the village of Millbank, and the subject lands are in the southeast portion of town. This dotted line is the settlement area boundary. And the subject lands that we're talking about today are, it's this parcel here that has the existing house and a small barn on it. This is the report photo that gives an overview. It's the application is to create two new residential lots within the village settlement area designation of Millbank. And each of these properties would have 100 feet of frontage, and they would be 0.56 hectares in size. The retained lot is just a little bit larger than the two severed and has I believe it's 127 feet of frontage. Just to go back briefly for explanation, this property is contained within a zone that's called HVR3, and the HVR3 zone, I'm just going to bring it up here for committee to read. It's in the staff report as well. I just wanted to point out that this property has a previous approval to allow the keeping of two driving horses in that barn. And then the other aspect of this HVR3 zone, it says that any dwelling erected on the land in the HVR3 zone shall be erected in the easterly 60 meters of the HVR3 zone. So when we go to this property, that's basically why this dwelling is located in the immediate, or sorry, the furthest east portion of the lot. And that was a condition of that HVR3 zoning that was done in the past, along with the allowance to keep two driving horses in this barn. So again, the property is in Millbank. It's in the village settlement designation, and it has that special zoning on it. The severance sketches for committee's reference here. This is the middle lot that would be created. It just shows you the dimensions. And this is the westerly lot here. These are on Norfolk Street, which is a publicly maintained year-round road. This application was endorsed by Perth East Council and subject to the conditions in the report. And one of the conditions that staff recommend is that the HVR3 zone on the two severed lots be rezoned back to the HVR zone. And the reasons are outlined in the staff report, but very briefly, by keeping the HVR3 zone on these two lots, it creates a zoning problem for future development of homes because it speaks to where the dwelling has to be located in the zone and not on the lot. And that's the reason for the condition. Just before the Perth East Council meeting, there was a correspondence received from Caroline Baker, and that's in the report package that committee has. But it was more or less an objection to having to rezone the two new severed lots. There was a number of reasons given, and I believe Caroline is here today to speak to this. I would be happy to answer any questions committee may have.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Any questions at this stage of the game for Adam on this application? Okay, moving on then, I would now invite any individuals that wish to speak in support of this application. And I do see Carolyn Baker's name on the screen. So Carolyn, if you wish to speak at this time, that would be fine.
Good morning. Yes, thank you, members of the committee. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll try to be brief. I know we're past 10:30. I can see on the clock. Generally, on behalf of the owners in which Baker Planning Group is representing, are supportive of the staff report and the conditions. As noted, the owner does have concerns with condition 8 requiring the zone change to the HVR 3. Sort of two reasons for their concern. One maybe not as planning related. One being is that they undertook pre-consultation with county staff and the requirement was not noted or listed in the submission requirement. So they did have concerns just finding out about it a few days before the application went to Perth East Council. The second piece for the owner is that given the characteristics of the community, the keeping of two horses with a predominantly Mennonite community would not be out of character from what residents might be used to or see, with a number of commercial uses in Millbank having parking for horses. Certainly understand planning staff's position regarding the zoning regulation requiring a dwelling to be on the 60 meters of the zone as opposed to a lot. And what I would suggest, in part in fairness to the owner and how this application has progressed through the process and the type of regulation that needs to be modified, is that a variance would be more reasonable than going to the degree of a zone change. It does carry significant additional costs that came at a late stage. And this would address through the variance this issue of a dwelling being on the eastern 60 meters of the zone as opposed to the lot. So it's not changing a use. And in my opinion, a variance is an appropriate mechanism under the Planning Act to address that matter. So that would be the request of the owner, but I can answer any questions that either staff or committee may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions with regards to Carolyn's comments? Looking at Adam and Sally, could this be achieved with a minor variance?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just in listening to Caroline's comments, the setback issue aside, there's also the matter of the zoning bylaw permission that the property has right now to allow 2 drive horses on it. If the HVR3 zone was kept on this property as is, it would allow then 2 drive horses to then be kept on each of the 2 new lots. The zoning bylaw currently allows 1 horse, subject to the applicant meeting certain criteria in the bylaw. So the potential impacts of 2 horses on each of the new lots is a separate planning issue that would have to go through a public process and require justification. So a variance to address only the 60-meter setback issue really does not address the 2 horses on each of the new lots issue. And again, without going through a public process or additional analysis, I don't know what the impact would be of those 2 horses on each new lot. And again, my opinion is that the 2 lots should be rezoned to HVR. And then once future owners of those lots, if they wanted to pursue an additional drive horse, they could do so through the committee of adjustment, perhaps, or rezoning.
Okay, other comments? Questions from the committee? Okay. I would invite individuals that are in opposition at this time to this application, and I don't see any, and I don't believe there are any. Okay, so we'll move on then. If there's no further questions or comments from the committee, the resolution is that Perth County Land Division Committee received the report entitled Application for Consent to Sever 2 new residential lots, B5420, B5520, by Robina and Magdalena Kipfer, affecting lands described as Registered Plan 261, Lot 179, 188, part of Lot 180 and 187 in the Ellis Ward, Township of Perth East. 4041 Norfolk Street, dated Monday, May the 31st, prepared by the County Planning Department for information, and that the County of Perth Land Division Committee approved the application for consent to sever 2 new residential lots number B54 and B55 made by Robina and Magdalena Kipfer, subject to the following conditions, and there's 9 conditions there. As with the previous applications, I won't read those conditions at this time. Any questions before Rachel takes the vote? Okay, Rachel?
Through the chair, I would just ask that we receive a mover and a seconder prior to the vote.
Oh, sorry. Yes,
No problem.
We need a
Thank
mover
you.
and a seconder. Do we have moved by Warden Aitchison? Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Duncan. Okay, now Rachel, sorry.
Wonderful. Through the chair.
Getting ahead of myself.
No problem. Through the chair, Warden Aitchison, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Duncan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Wilhelm, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Agats, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Chair Mackenzie, how do you vote?
Yes,
Wonderful, and that's carried.
so that is carried, right? Okay, moving on then, we have a report. The first one is new pending in process and final approved, withdrawn and delegated authority approved applications. So I'm going to let Deputy Land Division Secretary David Gundrum present the report, and then he can also answer any questions at the end of that. So David?
Great. Thank you, Chair Mackenzie. I'll just share a screen to the report just for reference purposes. I'm sure folks have it up themselves, but just so we all have it the same here. So to update from our last meeting in April, we have 6 new applications for severance that have been received. 4 of these are in the municipality of North Perth, 1 in West Perth and 1 in Perth East, as noted in the first section of our report here. We have 2 applications which are pending. So these are applications that have either been deemed not to be complete and are awaiting further justification materials or direction from the applicants. The first application is in West Perth for Benawise. In this application, we're awaiting additional materials from the applicant. We have had several messages back and forth with the applicant's agent to try and pin down where this one is going, and hopefully have more update for the committee at the next meeting in June. The second application pending is in Perth South, and the applicants requested some time ago that this application be held in queue and pending the outcome of OPA 189, which concerns proposed changes to the surplus farm dwelling severance policy. So we've been issued a formal letter by the applicant on that one, and it has shown up for a little while now in our previous reports. For in-process applications, we have 5 under that category currently. So these are applications which have been deemed complete, but there has been no decision made as yet. So we've noted the current status of each of those 5 for the committee. And finally, we have 5 applications that have been final approved since our last meeting in April. So these are applications for which all conditions of consent have been satisfied, and a certificate of official was issued by the planning office to the applicant or the owner's lawyer to complete registration of the severance. So that is a summary of our report. on new pending, in process and final approved applications. I will stop share screen at this point, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that members have concerning our update report.
Okay. Any, nice dog, David. Any questions for David at this time? Okay, if not, we do have a motion here then that the Land Division Committee received the Deputy Secretary Treasury report on new pending, final, approved, withdrawn, and delegated authority approved applications as presented on May 31st for information. Mover and seconder for that, please. Councillor Wilhelm and Councillor Agates. Any discussion? Rachel, you can take the vote, please.
Wonderful. Through the chair, Warden Aitchison, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Duncan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Wilhelm, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Agates, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Chair Mackenzie, how do you vote?
Yes.
And that's carried.
Okay, very good. Any correspondence to deal with at this time? No. Appeals, we have B4719 Wilson and Sally. You want to provide a bit of an update on this one?
Yeah, I wanted to confirm for the committee that this consent has lapsed. And we intend to adjust our report, the previous report you just heard from like new pending final approval. We want to add a section there for lapsed. It's rare, but it does happen. And we could offer it to you in that report, an update on LPAT hearings and reports. We're sorry, lapses in that report. So this one has lapsed and we will, the OPA is still under appeal. And we will include future updates about consent appeals in that new pending and approved report for you.
Okay, thanks, Sally. Any questions for Sally on that? Okay, seeing none. Any other business? Any closed session? Don't think we have. And the next meeting date is the 28th of June, which will roll around fairly quickly. So if there is nothing else, and I realize there's a couple people that have to leave, so a motion to adjourn at, oh gosh, 10:45, 10:44 would be in order. Councillor Duncan, and do we have a seconder for that? Warden Aitchison. Okay, Rachel?
Wonderful. Through the chair, Warden Aitchison, how do you vote?
Yes, and we'll see you later. I gotta go.
Take care. Councillor Agates, how do you vote?
Yes, and thank you. I need to leave as well.
Take care.
Thank
Councillor
you.
Duncan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Wonderful. Councillor Wilhelm, how do you vote?
Yes.
Wonderful. And Chair Mackenzie, how do you vote?
Yes,
Wonderful. And that's carried. Thank you.
so we are carried. Good.
Have a great day, everyone.
Take care.
See you, Matt.